Hey, this is Booker T, 5-time WCW champion, and you're listening to It's a Work podcast with Tristin and Ian. Now, can you dig that, sucker?
Welcome everyone to episode 5. That's right, we've recorded 5 times with Tristin and Ian.
Does that mean Booker T's going to be on this episode?
I think that's exactly what that means. That means the bookman, the booker, Mr. T himself. Well, not Mr. T.
King Booker,
without Queen Shamel or his royal crier, Mr. William Regal. But we've got King Booker on the show tonight, dude. How awesome is that?
Awesome, man. He was super cool to meet. We had a great conversation with him. Yeah, definitely got his take on some interesting topics. I was pretty shocked to hear him name Roman Reigns in part of our interview. So
it was a lot of fun to actually get stuck under a tent in the rain with him and watch him kind of panic when he saw that the edges were filling up with water and about to overflow.
Yeah, I was disappointed, man, that show got rained out. So
yeah, well, you know, the show might have got rained out, but it gave us a longer time to sit down with Booker T, which you're going to hear at the conclusion of this podcast tonight. So sit back, relax. We're going to hit some topics tonight, and then we're going to give you the 5-time WCW champion, the Hall of Famer, the King of the Ring, the World Heavyweight Champion, King Booker.
all right, dude, let's get right into some topics. There has been a ton going on in the world of wrestling. We're going to talk about a few specific things. First off, Talking Smack, not necessarily canceled, but a big throttle back in terms of the content they'll be putting out. So now it's only going to be right after the pay-per-views instead of a weekly show. I've heard some interesting conspiracy theories on that. Let me get your thoughts, dude.
I haven't really heard any conspiracy theories, but I was looking into it in an article from SI.com, Sports Illustrated, obviously. Talking Smack was canceled by Vince McMahon, not due to low viewership, as originally had been reported, or as was one of the rumors for it being gone, but McMahon apparently was just unhappy with Talking Smack and felt the show didn't serve the company's best interest or a great purpose. And they also noted on the SI.com article that McMahon had been making fewer physical appearances at television tapings as of late, which is kind of weird because, you know, I mean, it's Vince McMahon. I don't want to take away from the Talking Smack topic, but that's it's crazy to think that he's there less and less, which means he's probably having less and less of a hand in the company.
I don't know. I don't know if he's having less and less hand in the company, if we can see that in the content they're putting out there. But, you know, specifically around this, it's funny, the SI article was a great article. Listening today to Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer talk about it, and they had some unique takes, right, where Brian Alvarez definitely thought viewership was down, right? They didn't have the ratings on the show, and that the WWE makes these decisions based on viewership, right? And when you look at what's being consumed on a weekly basis, shows like Swerved are doing much better than something like Talking Smack. And his thought was, it's great for, you know, the super hardcore fans, right? We talk about wrestling. We got a wrestling podcast. We're watching it. We're watching pretty much everything that they put out, which sometimes is too much. But for the casual viewer, if they're not tuning in, then to the SI article's, you know, point, you know, what purpose does the show serve if no one's watching and they can't really build stars from it?
I mean, honestly, I can't really chime in too much about it because I never watched it that much.
Man, I watched it every week.
Whenever I caught it, I always found it to be interesting, or maybe I just found it interesting because whenever I caught it, I was actually looking it up after something great had happened.
Yeah.
Kind of like when The Miz went off on his tirade, or whenever somebody kind of does something funny, like maybe when Daniel Bryan was telling a fabricated story about James Ellsworth and how they call him the hog in the locker room because he's got such a big wang.
So I wonder if these promos and different interviews, if they can be worked into the actual SmackDown Live show. But I will say before we, move on, one of the interesting conspiracy theories that I saw on Reddit about this was maybe this is the WWE's way of starting to stifle Daniel Bryan and potentially lessen his value on the market when he does go, or when his contract is up, right? And he does go and potentially seek out, New Japan or Ring of Honor. And I don't think you can do that, but it's an interesting conspiracy that maybe he's going to continue to play less and less a role. And he was the best part of that show, I think.
To be honest, my thoughts on that have got to be the fact that I don't think WWE wants Daniel Bryan to leave. So I don't think they want to stifle his popularity or his value, so to speak. I think if anything, they want to try and give him a reason to stay, whether it be because of the reaction of the crowd, what he's doing, or the money that he's making. I know Daniel Bryan said that, when his contract is done next year, he wants to wrestle again, even if it isn't in the WWE. And maybe that's storyline, maybe that's him pulling their card and trying to make them jump on it and let him get back in the ring. I don't know. But I don't think that that's the reason, especially for the fact that Renee Young's other show on the WWE Network was also canceled this week.
That's true. And I've heard that, and I don't want to start throwing out shots and ideas, but obviously Renee is romantically tied to Dean Ambrose. So I heard that
they're having sex.
I heard Dean Ambrose showed up drunk to the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony, and that ever since then he's kind of just been on a pretty aggressive downward spiral.
Dude, if you actually sit and watch Renee Young's interview with him on the red carpet from that night, I actually thought it was one of the funniest parts of the whole Hall of Fame ceremony. Because he had on the sunglasses indoors, which, lots of people do, so that's not really a giveaway or a telltale sign of him drinking, but his mannerisms and the way he talked were way off compared to how off he normally is, because that's his character, and that's his personality too, but, even he was out of character telling Renee Young, hey, I'm here because I'm looking sexy for all the ladies, and she had to remind him, you should probably only do that for one.
That's funny. Yeah, so whether or not it's a Renee Young thing, I think it could definitely be Vince McMahon out of touch. But to Brian Alvarez's point, I'm not sure if the ratings aren't there. You look back at April, I think it's one of the hottest shows that the WWE was putting out there. I think now that it's a completely different story. So they canned it.
Whether Daniel Bryan leaves the WWE or whether Dean Ambrose gets in trouble and gets released, I think that those could be awesome things because you know what's next year? WrestleFest 9.
Nice. Yeah, that'd be cool, man. That'd be really awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of that, and I know I'm just throwing this at you, but I recently heard that Rey Mysterio's contract with Lucha Underground is now officially up, and he is shopping himself. And, the two biggest companies, Global Force and WWE, are interested. So what do you think about that, knowing we talked about it on episode 1? He's not going to be at WrestleFest, unfortunately, but there was a negotiation that was happening there.
Listen, he's not going to be at WrestleFest, and I'll give you 2 points on that one. One, if he goes to GWF, or is it GWF or GFW
Global
now?
Force
It's Global
Wrestling.
Force. All right. I got to get used to that. It's GFW.
Like NJPW, it took me a couple episodes.
Right? I got to stop making fun of you now for that one because I can't say Global Force's initials. But GFW, if Rey Mysterio goes there, it's because he's great friends with Del Rio and Conan. And they've got sway over, where he's going to go. If he goes back to WWE, it's because they backed up the Brinks truck and they know how to take care of him.
Well,
the guy when he was there was one of the few people that could actually beat John Cena in merchandise sales, so he was making a boatload of money.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to cut you off there, man. It's interesting because I think he is still a draw and he can still go. He's 42 years old, so
This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, and I want to urge you to make a generous donation to the Wayne Foundation so we can stop the sexual trafficking of children. Do it, or I'll find you, and I'll really fuck you up.
Man, you mentioned Del Rio.
Listen, let's save Del Rio and Paige for the next episode because this one's already jam-packed, and that one we could sit and talk about for about 20 to 30
I wonder if
minutes
that changes, though. I wonder if that changes Ray's, thought process, knowing that he's now suspended indefinitely.
Listen, I would want to stay as far away from those two as possible, to be totally honest.
That's what Paige was saying in the video. All right. So on our last episode, didn't we discuss Global Force? And didn't I ask the question how long before Jeff Jarrett is either on TV himself or bringing Vince Russo in, as Jim Cornette likes to call him, shit stain?
See, I don't see Russo coming back.
I don't know,
because
man.
Honestly, the last couple of times anybody has dealt with, and I mean anybody, I mean like networks and everything, they've actually written into their television contracts that they want nothing to do with Vince Russo and a working relationship with him. Jeff Jarrett, odds are we'll see him back on TV. Most likely not in the ring, though, so don't expect him to have another world title reign. Although I could be very well wrong on that one.
Awesome. Now let's
No, it's not awesome. Like, I like Jeff Jarrett, but nobody fucking wants him as the world champion again. Come on, that's not going to draw anything on television. Where's the ratings in that?
Well, you know what's so bad about it is they've had so much good talent over the years, and I spend a lot of time. We spend a lot of time talking about the WWE. We spend a lot of time talking about local indie wrestling. But other than that, I watch Ring of Honor on the Fight TV app. I love that, right? And I watch New Japan when they put content out there for free. I'm not, subscribed. And I watch like What Culture and stuff like that, right? So Global Force, TNA Impact, Global Force Impact, just not really on my list. And there's so much good wrestling out there to consume. I'm not sure that changes anytime soon.
Well, I mean, like we said, for our next episode, we're going to cover the Paige Del Rio situation, and we're going to cover the special G1 tournament that took place. But G1, their tournament with New Japan Pro Wrestling and Ring of Honor coming together to do shows in the States, I mean, GFW kind of has a lot of competition right now because Ring of Honor is hot. Sinclair Broadcasting knows what they're doing. And New Japan Pro Wrestling extending its reach that it already has into the U.S. I mean, come on. The choice is kind of obvious. It's Global Force's third string right now when it comes to those three, and that's not even counting the WWE.
This is very metal Brendan Conway. I hope you're playing this out of a Mesa Boogie on Triple Rectify.
Holy fuck, this is Bulletproof Ben McCoy, and I have no idea how I got here, but you are listening to It's a Work
podcast.
So before we get to the Booker T interview, why don't we talk about the Broken Hardy gimmick, which seems to be one of the most popular topics in pro wrestling today. So before we get to the interview with Booker T, let's talk about one of the hottest topics in pro wrestling, it seems, over the last year, the Broken Matt Hardy gimmick. According to a tweet that I had read from Reba Hardy, Matt's wife, we had agreement terms as of last week, included non-disparagement clause to the tune of $5,000 every time I tweet something about TNA. So AKA TNA made a deal with her that, if she tweets something shitty about them, which she's done quite a bit recently, if you've ever followed her Twitter, she owes them $5,000 every time she does. But the Hardys were willing to pay $10,000 to $15,000 for the rights to the Broken trademark. And the deal would have also included a non-disparagement clause, as they talked about, so that, when the Hardys are sending out press releases to end the conflict on the good terms, they had pointed out the fact that that was one of the deals. Then the deal appeared to be done, and Anthem Sports at the last minute made further demands, including wanting 50% of all Hardy's revenue, which included Jeff Hardy's art and music, and the Hardy Boys saw that as nothing but a cash grab, which anybody else would. GWF sources and Jarrett's current plan is to stall the hopes that the Hardys will give up pursuing the case, is what I think. But
yeah, I heard the same thing. I saw her tweet. Obviously, when we see Matt in the WWE, he, I think, is doing his very best to continue the mannerisms and the language, right, that that broken character used.
Well, it's not even just Matt. Last week, Jeff actually said on the microphone, we're going to do everything here in the WWE except for fade away and classify ourselves as obsolete.
Man, see, I didn't see that. So, yeah, you know what, you're right. I did hear about it, though. I didn't see it. I heard about it. And that's part of his song, so I wonder how that IP, works, right? But they're obviously pushing the boundaries with whatever they can do to keep it alive. Man, it's one of the best gimmicks.
Are you surprised by the 15 or 10 to 15 grand number? Because I honestly thought it would have been way more.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that. That seems like not a lot. But we didn't talk about this, and I think for this episode we can just shelve it and talk about it another time. But I'm going to bring up the fact that Jason Jordan is now Kurt Angle's illegitimate son.
Why don't you just say it? Black Angle.
So we look at what the WWE is doing with just poor storylines today. I still think the Broken Thing would be the best, most profitable merch and draw that they would have, right? What other storyline would you rather see right now based on anything they have going? I can't think of anything.
To be honest, there's not a lot of things I want to see right now.
Yeah.
I'm still enjoying the New Day and the Usos. I kind of want to see where the whole new Jason Jordan thing goes, just purely out of curiosity. I want to see what WWE does next with Enzo after him and Cass are done feuding. There's a lot of things I want to see, but none of these are like, oh my God, I'm clamoring to see them. They're just stuff that I'm like, okay, I'm interested to see what's next.
Nice. No, I agree. Cut that nice. Fuck.
Hey, dude, can I pull a prank on somebody really quick before we go and talk about the Booker T interview?
Yeah.
Tonight on Monday Night Raw in Tennessee, there was a guy in the crowd with a sign, and if anybody saw it, it was pretty hilarious. It said, "Send nudes." So you know what? I think we should have our listeners screw with this guy and pretty much send whatever you want. I'm not telling you to send one thing, but, if he got something long and phallic in his text messages, go for it. The number was 270-427-8279. Hey, you
give that number
asked
one more
for it,
time,
buddy. 270-427-8279. Fill this guy's phone with dongs.
Fill it with dongs. All right.
Give it a couple seconds, and then you can start to talk
I don't
about
know.
the Booker T
Do we have
interview.
to give it a couple seconds? We've gone from Black Angle to send dongs to this man. This podcast has gone. It's gone the wrong direction.
I like the direction that it's gone. So you know what? Let's just wrap it up for the night, and let's talk about what you're about to listen to next, which is our interview with Booker T.
No, it was awesome. We got a couple minutes with Booker T, Pro Wrestling Blitz, bring in all these superstars, the baseball shows.
Yeah, unfortunately, this one got canceled because of the rain. And the last time one got canceled, we actually had Rhino asleep in the corner in one of the skyboxes because he had to drive back to Michigan that night. This time, that did not happen, though, because we had Booker T, and we were able to sit down with him for almost 40 minutes. 20 minutes you guys get to hear, 20 minutes stay private forever, but they were amazing, let me tell you.
Yeah, and this was better than the Mean Gene interview in the sense that we were able to grab one of the suites and have a better audio quality and... have like a more...
It was just
there
more
wasn't
personable.
Like fans all over and everything, so it was definitely a great experience. Booker T was awesome for letting us, interview him on our 5th episode. Cool to have the 5-time WCW champion on it. So,
all right, so let's throw it to the 5-time WCW champion.
Booker T, how you doing, man?
Hey, man, I'm doing real good, man. Just hanging out. But it's a little wet right now, but it's all good.
Yeah, we've been doing these for about 3-4 years. The last time we were rained out like this, Rhino was actually taking a nap in the corner in full gear, just face with his butt sticking out away from the wall.
That's Rhino.
So we've had to do that a couple of times. Ian, you want to start off, man? Because I know you had some specific questions.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've been watching you since I've been watching pro wrestling. So again, really appreciate you doing this with us. I mean, I'm just curious. Some of my favorite things right now about watching Raw is having you back as part of the broadcast team, right? And I really love the dynamic between you and Corey Graves.
Corey Graves,
sorry, Corey Graves. Sorry. So one of the things that I notice is he's obviously the heel of the commentary team, but you play that character so well that sometimes you heel up on him. And I just want you to maybe talk about the dynamic you and Corey Graves have together.
Well, I think the dynamic with Corey and I, it's easy to work with Corey. I mean, he is good at what he does, and he's fallen right into his place, on Monday Night Raw in the commentary booth. For me, stepping back in, working with Corey on the kickoff show, we had a good chemistry together. On the kickoff shows, we didn't have a heel or babyface persona. We just was, having fun. And the same thing now, even though Corey's more heelish, I don't consider myself a babyface or a heel commentator because sometimes, I like the bad guy, you know what I mean? Sometimes, I don't like the good guy, and so for me, I'm just, playing it right down the middle. If I like you, I like you. If I don't like you, I don't like you. I got Michael Cole in the middle there, doing the play-by-play, which is a place that he's comfortable being in, and let Corey and I pretty much bounce off each other. Actually, Michael Cole is great at tossing up a softball for me to hit every now and then. Also, so I'm loving being back. More importantly, because they're letting me just be me. I don't have to be scripted. I don't have anyone in my ear telling me to say this or say that. Either you take me or leave me, and I'm loving it.
I gotta ask, because it seems like every once in a while, it almost looks like you're trying not to laugh, and you get kind of like wide-eyed. Is somebody catching you off guard, or are you trying not to crack? What is that?
No, sometimes we do get into a moment to where something's said, and it's an inside joke. A lot of times the public don't know what we're talking about sometimes, but it's just like Michael Cole and his wanting to be hip phrases as of late. I think last week it was turnt. You know what I mean? I'm from the hood, and I don't even know what that is. So he's been looking at his Ebonics dictionary and coming up with different words every week. You know what I mean? But it's cool though. It's cool.
So Booker, before we kind of kick this off, you and Tony, the owner of Pro Wrestling Blitz, were talking about selling, and I'm just curious, who maybe is catching your eye from a selling standpoint. And I asked that question because we just had Dave Meltzer rate the Okada Omega match 6.25 stars, and I thought that was a great way to tell a story between those two matches. So I'm just curious, what do you think of storytelling in today's wrestling world, and who's really kind of catching your eye as far as that goes?
As far as storytelling goes, like I say, Roman Reigns is a guy that's at the top of the ladder right now for me, as far as a guy that's getting the most out of the opportunity that he's been given. He's polarizing, of course. You love him or hate him. WrestleMania is the most boos I ever heard. Under one roof at a WrestleMania for a guy that's supposed to be a babyface, but he's a guy that handled it very, very well, and I look at him now coming out on the other side. I think it's going to help him, in the long run, going through this trial and tribulation later on in his career. He's going to be able to handle anything going forward. There again, Kevin Owens is another guy that I like, that's been around, for quite some time, who knows exactly what performing really, honestly, truly is. Chris Jericho and I, we always talked about Shakespeare, Leonardo DiCaprio, Romeo and Juliet, Phantom of the Opera, when we worked. And, I just want to see that part of the business come back and be the focal point of guys going out and performing, opposed to them just going out there jumping off something to get that crowd pop. Right now we have a word in wrestling that's, a phrase that's called "This is awesome, this is awesome." When I was, coming up, the phrase was Booker T, Booker T, Booker T. You know what I mean? Let's go Booker, let's go Booker. They were saying my name. And that right there is something that's gone, and I think that wrestlers need to figure out how to bring that back.
I've heard a couple of people say that when you first got to WWE, there was a promo exchange between you and The Rock. And I completely disagree with this because I think it was just him doing his shtick. But there's some people that have said that he buried you the night that you guys first did a promo together when he did his famous, you come here and you don't even tell me your name. Who the hell are you? And he cut you off with the what is your name?
Yeah.
You didn't feel disrespected or buried by that, did you?
Not at all. I mean, this is called wrestling. It's professional wrestling. It's entertainment. That's what The Rock, did at that time. You know what I mean? He was great at what he did. And to take that away from him just because Booker T is walking in the door, I think would be very, very stupid. So, I've heard comments about, people not wanting to come to WWE, Sting in particular, saying that, they thought that was wrong and whatnot, and I'm like, this is professional wrestling. I've never taken, a character, a skit, or a promo or anything. I've never taken any of it home with me, and I think 26 years later, I think that's the reason why I'm still here. I'm the last man standing. I'm the last.
That's right.
I'm the
5
one,
world championships.
I'm the
Ring
one,
on your finger for the Hall of
I'm
Fame.
the one guy that weathered the storm. You know what I mean? It's that way for a reason because with professional wrestling for me has always been means of my support. Has always been my job. I don't look at myself like a celebrity like a lot of other people do. I just look at myself as a hard-working man trying to make it day to day, just like everybody else.
I don't know about Ian, but I've got 2 more questions. So if you have the time,
Yeah, go ahead. Shoot.
did you have anything else?
No.
Okay. Me, and of course, I was a fan of WCW. I came around later on because I remember my stepdad used to tell me, you got to watch WCW. It's more real. It's more real. I never understood what he meant until, later on when I kind of really got into it as a teenager. But I was always a fan of Harlem Heat. I love the TV title runs that you had and some of the best of 7 and all that stuff. But when you got to WWE, I felt like you weren't pushed back or forgotten for a little while, but I feel like you didn't have the momentum that you did. And then King Booker came along, and I feel like it was almost like a skyrocket. Like, I feel like you've taken the King of the Ring win and done more with it than anyone did ever in the past. Where did the King Booker persona come from? Was that your idea? Was The Office? Did you just turn chicken shit into chicken salad? Like, what was it?
A little bit of both. For me, my reign, as king was awesome, but getting to that point was a roller coaster. I came from WCW, a company where pretty much all the guys, got buried, under a bunch of crap. I had to feel my way around. I had to, pretty much reinvent myself all over again. I had to, forget about all the accolades that I had, garnered in WCW and prove myself all over again, with a bunch of guys who thought they were better than us, So for me, it was a test to go out and, pass the test first and foremost, weather the storm, show these guys exactly how good I am. Of course, I didn't get the greatest angles, when I first got into WWE or anything like that, but there again, it wasn't expected for me to get, the greatest of treatment in WWE. But I was willing to prove, I was willing to take, whatever, and like I say, make it the best I possibly could on the show that night. King of the Ring tournament came around due to me calling my wife my queen all the time. I always, even to this day, I still call my wife my queen. Even before the King of the Ring, she was my queen, and I think they saw something with that. Bring the King of the Ring tournament back, make Booker king, I don't know what they thought, it was going to be like. I don't know if they thought it was going to be just something stupid, just something to keep me busy, whatnot, but for myself, I say making me the King of the Ring is a great opportunity for me to be looked at, throughout the annals of time as the greatest king that ever won the tournament, and I think, looking back on it,
And it brought you back to the world title.
It brought me back to the world title too, you know, and it put me in a position where I could have my own platform and create my own thing, you know, and it worked out really, really well for me. I think my reign as king, even though it was a short reign, people don't realize how short it really was, but it was only about a year, and I had to stop doing it because I couldn't do it anymore. I was just too tired. It was just too taxing.
But it was so much fun. As a fan to watch.
Yeah,
It was.
It was real. It was real. It was real to the fan. Either they loved it or they hated it. It was Camelot coming to SmackDown. It was, the greatest king that ever lived, the most revered king that ever lived, the most majestic king that ever lived. It was real to me when I did it. And I wanted to, like I say, just make people for the rest of the King of the Ring tournaments. I said, man, they'll never be able to do a King of the Ring tournament ever again after I was king. Even though they tried to do it, didn't work out so good. They tried to do it a couple of times after I was king, like with Regal, Barrett, and even a true Englishman like Barrett couldn't do the king role justice. So I think for me, it was just stepping out and trying to create something.
I said I only had 2 more questions, but I guess I kind of make myself a liar because you created another one. You've referenced Shakespeare like 2 or 3 times now. Big fan, or?
I'm a big fan of the art of, show business, being able to make people feel through your work. And for me, wrestling has been Shakespeare. It has been, Romeo and Juliet. It has been Encore. Since I've been doing this, ever since I was a kid, I think, more importantly, even before wrestling ever, became a thought in my mind, I've been on stage performing, and I love it. I love performing, and I think that's the only thing that I miss about the wrestling business is the performance. I don't miss the wrestling at all. I miss the wrestling as far as the entertainment goes, but as far as the bumps and the bruises and the pain that comes along with it, I don't miss that part at all. But the Shakespeare, being able to go out and perform and act and be an actor and make people believe something that's totally not real, take them and take them on a roller coaster ride to where for that moment their imagination is suspended to the point that they are believing and they're part of the show, so I miss that part of it. But as far as the wrestling part of it, I don't miss too much.
So as you built the Booker T persona, right, and you're one of the best on the mics, one of the greatest promos that have ever been, what are some of maybe the film characters or movies specifically that you drew from as you were kind of building, that gumption to go out there and take the mic and really deliver, the Shakespearean part of the job?
The Pope, even though he's not an actor, his mannerisms was, something that I took. Last King of Scotland, Forrest Whitaker, playing Idi Amin. I took a lot of his mannerisms. Also, karate movies came into play as King Booker a whole lot as well.
Please say Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon.
No, not Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon. The Shaw Brothers Productions actually came into play just because the master was always the guy that was sitting on the throne. He never did a whole lot, but when you mess with him, when you tested him, you realize why he was the guy that was sitting on the throne, because he was better than everybody else. He just didn't get to that spot being a rich guy. He actually could defend himself very well. And so as King Booker was very, very noble. He was a very, very caring person, but when he got into the ring, the peasant had to be humbled. And, and to do that, he had to do it, violently, and he had to do it viciously. To let every other peasant know that to stay in your place, and I think that's what that was all about.
So before we wrap it up here, and I know this is probably a 100% regular thing for you, maybe even, hopefully not to the point where you're annoyed, but when we spoke with Mean Gene Okerlund, we asked him about his famous SummerSlam promo. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's a taped promo where the banner falls in the background, and Mean Gene just turns and goes, "Oh, F it! Well, I bet that was $200." And I guarantee you do every single interview you do, but the infamous Hulk Hogan promo. May I ask you a question about it?
Go ahead.
So you were live. You were there this past week when what went down with LaMelo Ball and what he accidentally said. Mm-hmm. And WWE was very quick to issue a response about that. But I was curious what you think about this. If you go on the WWE Network, Spring Stampede 1997, 1 hour, 8 minutes, and 40 seconds in, you start your infamous promo. They don't censor or edit it. Why do you think that is?
I don't know, but I think they should censor it. I think they should edit it. I think that it should be removed from the annals of any platforms that's out there, to be honest.
I apologize if I shouldn't have
No.
asked.
I think it's a platform for me. I think it's a
word.
word that should be eradicated. You know what I mean? It's a word that shouldn't be said at all. We all know what it means. We all know where the word comes from. You know, and what happened on Monday Night Raw is definitely something that that shouldn't have happened.
What did you think about Big E's nod to it the next day?
Well, I think that's.
I mean, I thought that was genius.
I think that was. I think it was even more of a travesty of justice of what we tried to do. I think the word and the thoughts of the word should be eradicated. There's nothing entertaining about it. There's nothing entertaining. There's no form of entertainment that you can get out of that from certain people, especially certain people of a certain age that went through the struggle of knowing what that word meant in the 60s. Such as myself. I was born in 65. So I was there at the tail end of it. I know exactly what the struggle as far as MLK, the struggle of Kennedy. I even go back to the struggle of Lincoln, emancipating the slaves. You know what I mean? There's a reason why, that fight, that war against with the North and the South. It's the reason why that war was going on. It was all because of what we're talking about here. So I think young people need to realize and understand the power of the words that they use. My kids are 6 years old, and they've never heard the word before in my household.
I appreciate you sitting down for us. You're a hell of a trooper. And I hope I don't insult you by saying this, but far more intelligent and well-spoken than I would have imagined before meeting you.
Most people get the same impression, man. Most people, you change your levels. You got to know how to change your levels in life. You got to know when you're talking to certain people how to talk. When you go and do an interview, you got to know how to conduct that interview. You go into the White House, you got to make sure your pants ain't sagging. Just like you and I talking right now. I have to show young people out there that I am intelligent, that I'm not just some jock that they see on television that's just putting their tights and boots on, going out saying, "Can you dig it, sucker?" I'm running for mayor 2019, in November 2019.
You hear that, Texas?
It's a lot of young people. It's a lot of young people out there that need direction. It's a lot of young people that need somebody that they can look up to and and aspire to be like. And I hope I'm that beacon of light.
I think it's really great though that you're able to take this platform and then go out and try to change your community. I mean, we see it with what Kane's trying to do in Tennessee right now. I mean, I think it's just such a smart way to go out and influence, to your point, the younger people. And be able to, like, from a political standpoint, from a regulatory standpoint, I think put things in place.
I think it's our job. I think it's our duty to actually be able to do that. I remember when Hulk Hogan had his incident saying the word as well, and getting in all kind of trouble for it. I actually reached out to Hulk Hogan and I said, "Hey, let's go on the road. Let's go out and talk to young people and show how this word has really hurt so many people and ruined so many people. Look at what he's going through. It would have been a great platform, and he turned it down. I thought it was a mistake for him to turn that opportunity down, because I thought we could have helped a whole lot of people and changed the thoughts of a whole lot of young people out there right now that's listening to this rap music. Nothing against rap music, because I grew up on it, but I think some of the terms and some of the phrases, some of the things that are said, we definitely need to have a conversation about it.
Awesome, man. One of the greatest of all time. 5-time world champion. Greatest king of the ring ever, Booker T, man. We are so excited you did this. I can't thank you enough.
Hey,
Thank you very much, sir.
Anytime, man. Anytime. I appreciate you guys for having me.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
Boom.
Thank you very much, sir.
So
I
when
appreciate it.
we had Cody, he was like, "I fucking hate this podcast."
That's my boy too, man. He's another one of my guys.
Dude, what do you think of him like right now?
Oh, I like what he did, man.
I love it.
He needs to leave to find himself, man. He needs to leave to let those guys know that, hey, I'm
worth something.
I'm not beholding to you.
Oh, is that yours?
Yeah,
is that yours?
mine.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and he
I thought it was his.
Steal the man.
I thought it was his.
No, he needs to do that. I'm proud of him, man. No, I'm proud of him big time.
I'm the king of the world. In my mind.
This is the greatest. I'm a super genius.